we had some technical issues, maybe I'm a little bit more nervous than I would otherwise be. So I thought maybe it's actually a good time to use the breath. Yeah. So I invite you to join me if you want, if you feel that you need to come down, to settle in. I'd like to do one of my favorite little breathing technique that always works whenever I need to relax, is a sigh, but it's a special sigh. We're going to inhale fully through the nose and then take another sharp inhale through the nose and then exhale super slowly through the mouth. So I invite you to join me, and we'll do 2 more. So take a deep inhale and another sharp inhale through the nose and super slowly exhale through the mouth. Last time. Inhale through the nose. And another one. And exhale. Good. Now I'm ready. So let's start. Welcome, everyone. My name is Véronique, or Véronique Gauthier. And just a brief introduction so you can understand where I'm coming from. I started yoga about 20 years ago. I started because I was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis, and I thought, okay, that's a good alternative to the gym. And I discovered a whole new world of yoga. I completely fell in love, and I decided, okay, I have to become a yoga teacher. It's too good not to share. So I became a yoga teacher in 2008, and my natural inclination was to go and work with people with disability, with multiple sclerosis, or other form of chronic condition. So I decided to train in yoga therapy. And I was always looking for ways to do something that is more accessible, ways to improve our health that everybody can do. And I thought, well, if you live, you can breathe, or you breathe, then you can do something with your breath. And I looked at, I was looking for a teacher, and I couldn't find anyone until I came across the work of Dr. Ella Manga, who is a trained medical doctor, but she became an integrative medical doctor. And I discovered the full potential of breathwork, and I absolutely love it. And in breathwork, as breathwork facilitators, we are trained to create whole sessions about the breath. So we might start with gentle movements to open the upper body in particular, to welcome the breath. So we might stretch, the pectorals, lengthen the arm on the side, lean to the side and twist. But the idea is really to release tensions in the upper body so that the breath is easier. And we do usually 20 to 30 minutes. So there will be this warm up, and maybe we warm up the respiratory muscles, so the diaphragm and the intercostal muscles. And then we focus on 2 or 3 techniques that fit with the topic of the session. So topics could be something like, I don't know, sleep better, or improve your physical performance, or connect with nature. It can be physical, it can be mental, emotional, spiritual. Yeah. So, but the whole session is about the breath and the life force. There are some specific sessions with more transformative breathing techniques like conscious connected breath, but I'm not talking about these ones today. Yeah. So that's what we are trained in. But as a yoga teacher, I started to explore how to use breathwork, what I learned from breathwork, in my yoga classes. And I think there are different options, and that's what I want to talk to you about today. So first, one thing that I would like to mention is that now I'm really obsessed at looking at how people breathe. I keep looking, is it upper chest or is it abdominal breathing? And I realize that a lot of people, me included at the beginning, don't breathe optimally. Yeah. So just explaining to students in a yoga class how to breathe properly, it might sound like, of course we breathe. We know how to breathe, but a lot of us don't breathe optimally. And there are quite common dysfunctions like upper chest breathing or mouth breathing, even in yoga class. So just doing this, I find, is already quite important. Yeah. And also something that I notice for people who do a lot of yoga, and that was my case. I do a lot of yoga and I focus on relaxing because I think, that's what I need. But then I realized that I didn't really enjoy energizing breathing techniques too much because I was too much into a very kind of slow, relaxing mode. But what we learn in breathwork is that being too much in the relaxing mode is not good neither. What we need is resilience. We need to be able to switch from one energizing breath to a relaxing breath and back and forth. So that's when I realized I was just going too much into the relaxing mode. So that was my work. My personal work was to learn to enjoy energizing, switching, holding the breath, and so on. So that was first a preliminary note on why it's important to integrate breathwork in a yoga class, in any movement class, actually. But when it comes to your typical yoga class, I think there are three options. We can integrate breath work at the start of a yoga class, at the end, or during the class with a couple of asanas. So blending the asana and different breathing techniques. So the first option to add or to start the class with some breath work, I do that a lot now. It's nearly something that I do automatically. And it can be 5 minutes, can be 10 minutes, doesn't have to be longer. And I find it's so helpful, especially if a class is at lunchtime or in the afternoon, in the evening, to help students switch off. So what we did at the beginning, this sighing, it's called physiological sigh, is a great way for me to switch off. So I could forget what happened before and the technology has it or whatever. I switch off. Or we can do a breathing technique like the warrior breath, where we inhale, bring the arms overhead, and on the exhale, we swing the arms, make fist, and exhale powerfully through the mouth. So we can do that and forget about what happened before. It helps to center the attention. And I really think that breath work, as breath awareness even, is super useful. One question I ask my students very often at the beginning of classes is, observe your breath. What does your breath say about how you feel right now? And when we know that each emotion or mental state has a specific pattern, then that makes sense to ask this question. So we want to observe the breath to have information about how we feel right now. And this awareness is, for me, I think, a really nice centering option. Yeah. So how do you feel right now? We know that if we are angry, then the breath probably will be, the inhalation will be shallow There might be tension in the body. The exhalation will be strong. So if you observe that, oh, I'm a bit angry, might not be conscious, but I'm a bit angry. So maybe I should focus on that during the yoga class. Or am I sad? Is my inhale lacking energy? So at the beginning of a class, switching off, focusing on how you feel, centering, and then it helps to set the tone as well for the class. So if you want to do a very relaxing class, you can start with an energizing breathing technique. And there is quite a list of energizing breathing techniques. You can just do that for a few minutes and then do the asanas. So you will already be mentally ready for the asana practice. Yeah. So that is how I incorporate breathwork at the beginning. At the end, I find it is useful, for instance, if you've got a very energizing practice and some energizing sequences, and then maybe the Savasana arrive a little bit quickly and you didn't have time to slow down, then you can use the breath to slow down a bit quicker. Also, it's great if you want to follow with some meditation. That's a nice way to help to focus on something before meditation. And I don't know, it could be that it's just with my students, but I find it's quite common to have students who are not comfortable at the beginning of Shavasana. You know, it feels like the letting go is a little bit uncomfortable. And I think that the breathing can be a nice bridge, because especially if you keep counting the breath, so you move from being active physically to being passive physically, but you are still counting, and then you go into relaxation. So it's a smoother transition for a lot of people. So they are the kind of the most standard way to integrate breath work in a yoga class. But the one approach that I have explored more, because I really see a lot of potential, is to blend asanas and breathing techniques. Yeah. In Ashtanga, it's already, like the whole practice is with Ujjayi breath. Or it's quite common as well in some Kundalini classes to use the breath of fire in some poses. But except from that, we tend to just breathe in and out through the nose. Yeah, and that's kind of the only real instructions regarding the breath. But I think we can use the breath to support the asana, yeah, and to help the student really feel the asana. I find it's a good way to help students understand that asana is not about creating a shape. It's about how you feel in this pose. And the breath helps you to feel a specific way and to kind of synchronize with the asana. And this is possible because we know that our breath is linked to our mental state. It's linked to our nervous system. Yeah. And so I explain all this in more details in the course on EkhartYoga Academy, but just briefly, we've got many tools when it comes to the breath. We can, I'd say, play around because breath work is very flexible. There are not too many rigid laws, but we can play around with the inhalation, the retention after inhalation, the exhalation, the retention after exhalation. We can play with the length of each of these phases, with the volume, with the speed. We can play around with the channel, so channel being either the mouth or the nose, or the left nostril, the right nostril. In some cases, we can play around with the muscles that we use. So for instance, if you inhale fully and pause, so hold your breath, you can either choose to block from your diaphragm and your upper chest, or from the glottis. So this again will have different impact. You can also, and I do that a lot, play around with the direction of the breath. So that is linked to the concept of the vayus in yoga. Or you can play with the quality of the breath, and that is linked more with the concept of gunas. So you've got all these variables that you can play with. So the key is to understand how all these variables impact on the breath and on our nervous system, which is what I explain in the course. So just to give some basic examples. So the inhale is linked to the sympathetic nervous system. It is energizing. Yeah. If you want an inhale even more energizing, use the breath channel or use the right nostril, yeah, which is also energizing. So you can add up different elements. The retention after the inhale is all about keeping the life force, yeah, and it's great to strengthen your diaphragm. And inhale, retention after inhale has the same property as the exhale, which means it activates the parasympathetic mode, which is relaxing. Yeah. You also have retention after the exhale, which has other properties. The one thing that is important to remember is we shouldn't move after, if we hold the breath after a full inhale. So inhaling, holding the breath, you want to stay still. If you exhale and hold the breath, then you can move. Yeah. So these are just little rules. There are some. And there's also another retention. But the retention that you might experience in meditation or in conscious connected breath, where you have the impression that you stop breathing. But as I said, it's only in some specific kind of breathing techniques. So this is how you can play with these phases of the breath. Inhaling through the nose is more relaxing than through the mouth. The left nostril is more relaxing than the right. And then you can play with the quality of the breath, focusing on different gunas or different direction of the breath. So instead of going on to about all this theory that I wouldn't have time to cover now, I want to give you some more concrete example of some poses and how you can experiment with the breath in these asanas. But I want to make it clear that I'm not changing the breathing all the time in a class. Yeah, I think that would be really quite disturbing. But I will maybe focus, let's say, first example, the focus is on chest opening. Yeah. So I will try and see how I can use breathing techniques to help the student really feel this, let's say, just normal a baby cobra, or sitting with the hands behind you and you lift the chest. So your legs are straight in front of you and you just lift the chest like this. Or it could be the fish, or it could be cobra or a bridge. Yeah. So, sorry, I'm just going to move a little bit my screen. There is, so one breathing technique could be the full yogic breath, where you inhale and expand first in the upper abdomen and then the middle of the chest and then the upper chest, and then exhale. So that's one option that really supports chest opening asana. Or Viloma. Viloma 1, I find, is even better. So Viloma 1, we inhale, expanding the upper abdomen, lower ribs, and then take a little pause, 2-4 seconds, and then inhale the mid-chest. Take a little pause, 2-4 seconds, then upper chest, 2-4 seconds, and then exhale. And you can play around with the length. You can play around with the channel, inhaling through the nose or the mouth, or the same for the exhale. But you really can feel how this helps to bring this idea of chest expansion from within. I also would combine with the pranavayu, so the direction of energy from the thorax to the top of the head. So when we breathe in Viloma, we visualize this expansion of the energy upwards. And you could also add a visualization of the light. So this is just one way to incorporate breath work to support the asana. Yeah. And it helps as well to make sure that we stay in the pose. We really feel the breath. We're not wondering what we'll have for dinner. Yeah. Also, what I play around with, so I would do that maybe with one pose, or if I have similar poses one after the other. So let's say a few twists. I would start with an easy one and get to a deeper twist. I would progressively extend the exhale. But what I find is really interesting as well is to have the same pose, same asana, but different breathing techniques, and to ask the students to feel the difference. Yeah. So, for instance, let's take the boat Navasana, yeah, or half boat. We can actually use Viloma 1 to feel the extension, to make sure that we don't collapse in the lower back. So lifting and feeling the energy going upwards, feeling the lightness in the upper body. And the boat will feel like a tall, like a tall boat, with the wings up. That's the movement that we want to focus on. And then you can also do the boat with the skull shining breath, Kapalabhati breath of fire. And this time you focus your attention on the solar plexus, on the Samanavayu, so the contracting of the energy within. And maybe then you will have the experience of the natural retention as well. So your boat will feel completely different. Same shape, maybe, but completely different. Yeah. Most standing poses as well, you can play with that. For instance, one of my favorite is Warrior 1. So in Warrior 1, you can separate basically the upper body from the lower body, so from the waist. If on the you experience again a lifting, let's keep Viloma 1, lifting your upper body into the warrior 1. Really feel how extensive the breath is and focus on the same upward movement, the lightness. And then so on the inhale, and then maybe in this one, on the exhale, you focus more on grounding, on Apanavayu from the pelvic down. Or you could just do a grounding breath, long exhale. That will feel different. You can do both, inhaling and exhaling. Lengthen your exhale and feel the ground. It's more cleansing. So these are just some of the examples associating as well with directions and quality of the breath. And really focusing on what quality do I want the students to experience. One last thing. So I mentioned the twists. For me, the twists, I love playing with the ratio. So inhale to exhale ratio. And nose or mouth. And I actually now, a supine twist, I will nearly always inhale through the nose, purse the lips, and super slowly exhale through the mouth. On a ratio of 1 to 2 or even 1 to 3, when I know that the students are okay with this slow, long exhale. And you can really feel how the long exhalation helps the body, the muscles to relax. And the twist feels completely different. As I said earlier, breath work is very flexible. So you don't have to stick exactly to inhaling for 3 seconds, exhaling for 6, and so on. You can play. So what I meant earlier when I said I do that over several poses, where, if I know that I'll have 3 poses to go towards the supine twist. So maybe a gentle one will be the wipers with the legs bent, and then the 2 legs on one side and then extending one, or something like that. I will do the first one with a ratio, or inhaling for 4 and exhaling for 6. So it's already starting. The longer the exhale, the more relaxing the breath. So it's already starting to slow down. The next one, I will say, okay, now let's lengthen. We'll do inhaling for 4 and we'll exhale for 8. And then the last one, if they can, inhaling for 4, exhaling for 10. And you can adapt. Most people probably can do 5, inhaling for 5 and exhaling for 10 or 15. So playing around with these ratios really help with the relaxing poses. And as I said earlier, it helps to quiet the mind, calm the mind as well. So it relaxes the body and calms the mind. So I find it really is an easy way to support the asanas. And that's how I now see breath work as a way to support the asanas and to feel them and to really stop seeing the asana as a shape. So that's my experience. I haven't read anybody else experience with the using breath work and the asanas, but I'm sure more and more yoga teachers are experimenting with it, because there are more and more yoga teachers also doing breath work training. So that was really what I wanted to share with you, and I final. Oh yeah. If you have any question, can you please either raise your digital hand, I suppose, or you can maybe just write in the chat. I think maybe the chat is the better option. Oh, yeah. Good. So I think probably Masha would know the answer of, will the recording be available afterwards? I think we are recording, so yes, you'll get the link to the recording. Oh, thank you, Carrie Ann. I'm really happy if it helps, and I really think that we should feel free to experience first. I mean, with ourselves when we practice our own yoga, just to play around with the different breathing techniques, and whatever you feel, it's highly likely that your students will feel the same. So yeah, great, Joe. I'm glad you're going to experiment as well. And probably I think that every asana, you can play around with the different breathing techniques. But as I said, I wouldn't change. I would just focus on one or two asanas, just not to overwhelm the students and not to take over the class, because otherwise it becomes a breath work with some movement. Yeah, thanks, Karen. Yeah, I think our breath is an invitation to just play and really focus on how you feel when you change anything in your breath. I always say that breath is a language, so it tells you, how you feel, and then when you know the rules, when you know, okay, if I do that and I change that, it's a little bit like your cooking recipes. Oh, if I add a little bit of salt, I might have a stronger flavor, or a little of red wine in tomato sauce. Oh, that enhances the. You do the same with the different parts of the breath, and you feel differently. You're welcome. Look forward to learning more. Yeah. So the course on EkhartYoga Academy, I really explain in detail about the breath at a cellular level as well. So the physiology of the breath, the chemistry, the biomechanics, the nervous system, and go through a lot of different techniques too. So and there is a 20% reduction in the courses for the month of May with the code Mental Health 20. Thank you, Simone. I love the idea of being able to use your breath for your benefit, but I'm quite careful about it. Is there anything we should avoid, mainly due to blood pressure? That's a really good point, Caroline. Again, I think you should always ask yourself how, what does my breath says about how I feel? So the restrictions that I mentioned earlier about, inhale fully, hold the breath, then don't move. Yeah. And move only with a retention after the exhale, for instance. So there are a few things like that. If you have high blood pressure or so on, you will avoid, really strong breathing techniques. So that's where you need to understand the properties of the breathing techniques. So in the course, we go in detail about this breathing technique has this effect. Or if with pregnancy, there are some breathing techniques you want to avoid. The same as for asanas, because it's powerful. The breath is powerful. So obviously you want to make sure that you don't, create more tension in your body than you would need. So, but for blood pressure, really check always do the soft version of a technique. So you can, let's say you've got a breathing technique like the 20 connected breath. You would do it through the nose, which is a softer variation. Yeah. Thanks, Sarah. What kind of breath work do you use at the end of class? I love the alternate breathing. So at the end of a class, I very, very often do the alternate breathing, but I play around sometimes just alternating without retention, sometimes with retention, and sometimes with counting as well. It depends as well when the class is. So if I do a lot of morning classes, so morning classes, I don't want people to be too relaxed. I want them to be more balanced or sometimes energized. So more balanced before Shavasana, and in the evening more like a relaxing one that would be like 5-10 or something like that. Thank you. Yeah, Maria. Yeah, the transitional gradually to Shavasana. I think it helps to it's smoother, just smoother. Is there a right or wrong way to retain the breath after inhale? Yeah. So it's not about the where. You've got the option, but the one thing that you should avoid is to create tension, and that's why I actually try not to use the word hold the breath. I try to always say pause, because I find if we say hold, there is this tension, and I realized in myself and in a lot of people that when we say hold, we use these muscles, the neck muscles, and we create tension. That's not what we want. We want to pause and relax. Yeah. And one thing that I also often suggest is when you pause, and that's a tip from divers, smile. Because when you smile, I think it's the beginning of a song. When you smile, you send a message to your brain that it's okay, all good, you can relax. So you pause, but you relax. And that's what you want. That's the benefit of holding or pausing. It's not about, we never want to hold as long as possible. That's more if you want to become a diver, not in yoga. We want to pause. And if you want to pause at the end of the inhale, you want to receive, to keep the life energy longer. So it's not about forcing, it's about, oh, thank you, receiving and enjoying, not a fight. I didn't know if this question is welcome. Please let me know. How has yoga and breath work helped your condition, and what is your experience with helping other people with chronic conditions? Very welcome question, Simone. I'm very open about living with MS because I think that yoga and breath work have helped tremendously. So one of my nicest experience as a breathwork facilitator was with a woman who has MS, but really quite, she's basically paralyzed from the neck down. So she was just lying on a reclining chair, and we only practice lengthening the exhale. That's all we did. Inhaling softly. Imagine that you've got a feather under your nose and you don't want the feather to move when you inhale and when you exhale. And slowly, little by little, lengthen the exhale. And she said that made really major impact on how she felt. So when I was really so delighted. Just sharing that made a huge difference for her. For me, I mean, I'm really fortunate that I'm really, really well, and yoga has saved my life. And I'm sure that if I hadn't done yoga, I would definitely be not in a good place. Let's say, I think yoga can help living with any health condition, mentally, emotionally, and physically. You can do a lot. Moving your body is helping all the systems in the body. So yeah, Judy, use pause and smile. Yeah. Another one that I love doing is yawn and smile, because yawn is part of breath work. It's a very natural loop in the body that helps to relax, and it's fantastic to start a class like this. But maybe we can finish this webinar instead with a yawn and smile, and I'll change my screen option so I can see you all. I've got a gallery of faces who are going to smile at me. Such a good way to end. So if you want to put on your camera and smile at me, then you're more than welcome. And this technique is really just stretching and yawn. So to fake a yawn, you just open your mouth, inhale through the mouth. Oh, and maybe you need to fake one or two, but then it will happen naturally. And then bring your hands to your heart and smile. Good. And that's something I could do all the time. I think it's just a fantastic way to connect with people, even if they are remotely or they're in a different country and it's only on Zoom, but just sharing a smile on screen is a wonderful thing that I do more and more. So I see there's one more. Oh, thank you. Please don't hesitate to contact me if you've got any question. I will be more than happy to help if I can. Sorry, I didn't see the question. Practicing breathing with persons who have cancer. Yeah, definitely. Breath work with people who have cancer is also a good option. I'm not a specialist, but I know a few breathwork facilitators who work mainly with people who have cancer. And yeah, I would be happy as well to send some links if you want. But I would need to research them now. But definitely breathwork, because it helps you to relax. It helps you to it also has an impact on your immunity. So yeah, definitely. I think with anybody, I don't see anyone who wouldn't benefit from some type of breathing. Not everyone, every type of breathing, but everybody would benefit from paying more attention to their breath. That's for sure. Okay. Good. Yeah. There's any more question, please go ahead. Otherwise, thank you, Waka. So I think we can say goodbye now. Thank you so much for attending this webinar. Yeah, Masha added one more messages for those of you joining the course. The promo code is mental health 20, and the month of May is mental health month. So thank you very much for this offer as well, Masha. Hope it will be helpful. And thank you, everyone. As I said, please let me know if you've got any question. And also, if you experiment with breathing techniques and your own practice or your students, please share, because that's something we can exchange as well. Good. Great. Have a lovely rest of the day wherever you are, and focus on your breath. Just enjoy your breath. Thank you so much. Good day. Bye-bye. Bye, everyone.